condolences go out to the whole family. I am not going to reveal the members of service's name because we're still pending notification of the family. So again, I'd like to just ask for a moment of silence for our fallen officer. Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone here today for joining us as we discuss the dangers posed by left-turning vehicles and also the debut of our left-turning safety video produced in conjunction with Family of Safe Streets. Also here today are the Department of Transportation, our partners, Assistant Commissioner of Education and Outreach, Kim Wiley Schwartz, and also DOT Director of Strategic Initiatives, Julia Kipe, and of course, our Family for Safe Streets. While we've made progress in Vision Zero through the 3 E's, education, engineering, and enforcement, we continue our firm belief that any injury or fatality is not only unacceptable, but is also quite preventable. When a loved one is lost and doesn't come home as a result of being struck by a vehicle, it is no less tragic than losing a loved one to gunfire or any other type of violence. The loss is just as great. As the Chief of Transportation for the NYPD, as a husband, a father, and a resident of New York City, the dangers posed by left-turning vehicles are very real and concern me. If all our New York City drivers take heed to this message, we can dramatically improve the safety for all our pedestrians, bicyclists, and even benefit our motorists by limiting their exposure to legal liabilities. My message is, left turns are 3 times as likely as right turns to cause injury to our pedestrians and our bicyclists on the roadway. This is because left turns can be taken at a wider radius, leading to higher speeds and greater pedestrian exposure. Secondly, driver visibility can be obscured by the vehicle's A-frame. And lastly, vehicles making left turns require more effort and often more difficult to make them right turns. So I offer 3 simple steps for New York City motorists to improve the safety of left turns. Number 1, slow down as you approach an intersection and prepare to make a left turn. Always look both ways for pedestrians and bicyclists, and especially for our seniors and our children. And always proceed with caution. By following these simple steps, every motorist can help lessen the dangers of left turns. Dangers that are very real, as the families in our video and the family who has joined us here today can attest. These families have lost loved ones as a result of left-turning vehicles that failed to yield to pedestrians that had the right of way. These families did not have an opportunity to say goodbye to their loved ones, and I'm certain that the hurt and the pain and the loss never goes away. Family for Safe Streets has taken their pain and transformed it into action and helped prevent future tragedies for others. They have been an integral component to such changes as lowering the speed limit, increasing the number of speed cameras, and partaking in events like today, when we work to educate our motorists and to act responsibly and behind the wheel and when they're driving. We want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Liao for their participation in this video. The Liaos lost their 3-year-old daughter, Allison, to a left-turning vehicle on Main Street and Cherry Avenue on October 6th in 2013. We also want to thank Diane Lerner, who lost their son, 9-year-old Cooper Stock, to a left-turning vehicle on West End Avenue and 37th Street on January 10th in 2014. Joining us here today is Raul Amporo, who lost his 9-year-old son, Giovanni, to a left-turning vehicle on Northern Boulevard and 70th Street in April 28th of 2018. We are honored to have these families' participation. We thank them for their commitment and their courage and their sacrifice. I also want to thank Family for Safe Streets and Transportation Alternatives for their support. And again, I remind all New York City motorists to realize that their choices behind the wheel matter, especially when making left turns. And with that, I would like to ask Assistant Commissioner Kim Wiley-Shorts to join us here for some remarks.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. First and foremost, I want to thank the Chief for everything that he's done. Not only have they tremendously increased their enforcement on dangerous driving behaviors, but also have taken the lead on this education and communication strategy, which we believe will make a huge difference out on our roadways. Also, at the Department of Transportation, and you can take a look at our left-hand turn study called Don't Cut Corners, which is sort of the cornerstone of the work that the Chief has been doing. We have put in these left-hand turning traffic calming treatments, such as a hardened center line, when you can see them on our two-way streets when you're coming off a one-way street, that row of low plastic bollards, or we might put some sort of turning wedge in. And always, this is to help people remind the things that the Chief is saying, that you need to slow down while you take the left-hand turn. And I know the Chief and I both recommend 5-mile-an-hour turns, and also that you make that turn at 90 degrees. And I know the Chief has put together an incredible video that's very instructive to let you know how to make those changes. So we thank you, Chief, for the work that you're doing, and we look forward to having even more safe streets. Thank you.
We are going to show the video that was produced in reference involving the families, and you can see that on your left.
Allison was struck and killed by a left-turning driver. She was walking across the street with her grandma.
My son, Cooper Stock, was struck and killed by a taxi driver as he was crossing the street.
Left-turning cars are a leading cause of injuries for pedestrians and bicyclists.
When the taxi driver hit and killed my son, he didn't just kill one person, he killed my entire family.
And he destroyed a whole community.
Making a left-hand turn is one of the most dangerous things you can do in a car.
Cars turning left travel faster than cars turning right.
He was 9 years old. He learned all the rules. We always made sure he was safe.
Not a day goes by that I don't think about Allie and how life would have been if she was still alive.
My daughter should be alive today. She was crossing the street while holding grandma's hand on a clear day.
This didn't have to happen. The choices you make matter.
Drive at a safe and manageable speed.
The loss of lives like Allison's and Cooper's are preventable. We as drivers can reduce traffic-related injuries and fatalities by remaining alert when making left turns at intersections. So please, slow down as you approach a left turn. Look both ways for pedestrians and bicyclists, and especially for our seniors and children. And always proceed with caution. Thank you.
I would like to introduce from Families from Safe Streets, Mr. Raul Ampuero.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Raul Ampuero. I lost my son, Giovanni Alexander Ampuero, exactly almost a year ago, April 28, 2018. He was walking with his mom, holding her hand, just getting an ice cream. And he had the benefit of walking, and the car turned to the left, and he didn't see her. He killed my son. It was a horrible and terrible accident. He left the scene of the crime, and he was caught afterwards. My son was laying on the floor, bleeding, asking for please help. Nobody helped him. The ambulance came. He passed away. His last words were, "Please, Mom, do not let me go. I love you and I love you, Daddy." That kills me every day. Every day that I get up in the morning and I think for them. I have his picture and I cry. And there's not a single day in my life that I don't miss Giovanni. And the purpose that I'm here is for you guys to know that we need to slow down when we turn into the left. It could be your father, it could be your mother, it could be your brother, it could be your son, it could be your daughter. You guys can imagine how terrible it is and feels every day losing a lovely one. And if you did, I'm sorry to hear that. This shouldn't be happening. Giovanni should be here. He should be standing with me, walking to the park, walking with his mom, just getting the ice cream. For God's sake, people, please slow down. Like Officer Chan said, just take a few seconds. Please stop driving like a maniac, because my son is not here. Killing somebody, running at the scene of the crime, it's not gonna help. There's cameras everywhere. They're gonna catch you sooner or later. The NYPD is doing their job, and I'm so glad working with them. I'm so glad working with families, street safety, because my son's death was not in vain. Because I will do whatever is necessary to save life, and that is my job, to save life. Children should not be killed in the streets. We're not supposed to be burying all children. We're supposed to be die before they die. And unfortunately, Giovanni is not here to speak for himself. And that's what I'm here, to speak on behalf of Giovanni, on the lovely one they lost their once. And I wanted to tell you through your cameras that slow down when you turn to your left, please. You take in the emotion or the feeling of these people is terrible, and the impact that you create not only on the father, mom, teachers, school members, friends. It's the impact they create of 100 people, not just one lovely person. It's everyone else that knew Giovanni, or people that knows the feeling that I'm going through. So I just wanted to say one more time, please, slow down. I don't want to have another Giovanni in the cemetery. I don't want to have another lovely one dead. That should be zero tolerance, zero vision, no more. And that's what I'm here. So I want you to know, people, that you're not going to see me here the first time. You're going to see me many other times, because I'm not going to stop. Because everything else has to stop. This cannot keep going. So I just want to thank you, everyone, for your time. And on behalf of myself and on behalf of Family Street Safety, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And I've said this before earlier, as a New Yorker, if all our city drivers, whether it be our deliveries, our truck drivers, oil trucks, sanitation, and all our drivers on New York City roadways, slow down, think for a second. Left turns are more problematic, 3 times as likely to cause an injury. If you pay attention and slow down, that one simple act can save a life, please, by doing so and following what simple recommendations. We do have a video here on left turn safety, and please look on your left here.
Left turns cause 70 preventable deaths since 2016. Why are they so dangerous? 3 reasons. Left turns are more complicated than right turns, so they require more mental effort. Left turns can be taken at a wider radius, which often means drivers are faster when making left turns. The driver's visibility is partially obscured by parked cars and the vehicle's A-pillar. Left turns are especially tricky because your view is obstructed by the frame of the car, which makes it harder to see pedestrians, especially seniors who may move slowly and children who may not be as visible. You see me? Now you don't. You see me? Now you don't. Here's what you need to keep in mind when making a left turn. Slow down as you approach the intersection. Look both ways for pedestrians and bicyclists. Move your body to see around the A-pillar. Proceed cautiously at a slow, safe speed. NYPD will continue enforcing traffic violations to keep you safe, but we need everyone's help to make sure that no more lives are lost due to careless left turns.
Questions in reference to left turns?
Since you started this campaign, Chad, have people responded saying that they now realize how dangerous it is because of that A-frame? Do people in the past realize that they couldn't see pedestrians?
Well, part of the program, we've talked about left turns and the reduction in speed, and this has been part of our training and outreach. But again, we are concentrating. We produce some videos with the family here, and we have a training video here also, and we want to get that message out to all our New Yorkers, and hopefully that'll resonate with them, that each and every time that they make a left turn, that they pay more attention to that because it's certainly more problematic.
Chief Chan, in addition to this public information campaign, is there a component to this initiative whereby you might change the timing of left turn signals or any other type of infrastructure improvements? Can you talk about that component of this initiative, please?
I'll let the Department of Transportation, they have certain initiatives and technology that they've utilized for that.
Okay.
Please.
Yes, and I mean, this is so important to say. This is how Vision Zero works, right? Working all together and using different methods. So we use our leading pedestrian interval, where we give the pedestrian a head start of 6 to 8 seconds in the crosswalk. That also helps them establish themselves more. They might be able to make it past the A-pillar. We also have changed and re-signal timed a lot of different turns, and you've probably been seeing that left flashing yellow arrow that comes on at a different time to really encourage a slower turn. And then, as we said before, we also have these treatments that we put into the ground that force a vehicle to make the turn. You know, as the chief has pointed out, that wide turn that you can make, it's much better to take it at a clean 90-degree angle.
So it's like a median, like
right.
a
So
concrete barrier?
so there are two different things. The first is on our two-way streets, we put a series of low plastic bollards through the center. We call it a hardened center line. So you simply cannot sweep through. You have to make that turn properly. And we also have a wedge that we put closer to the crosswalk, and you'll see those as well. And again, that forces drivers to make their turn in the manner that the chief is educating.
That's a concrete wedge?
No, it isn't. It's made out of either paint with flexible bollards, or we have some that almost look like small speed humps, so that there's a tactile bump if you hit it.
And last quick question on this. Do you have the number of intersections where you have made
Yes,
these revisions?
absolutely.
As well as the number of additional left turn signals you've installed around the city?
Yes, so we've done 330 of these treatments at 330 intersections after 2016, when we all worked together and realized that this was a big problem. And then in terms of our signal timing, we've exponentially increased our leading pedestrian intervals. So where we did about 10 a year before Vision Zero, we do somewhere between 800 and 900 a year. So, you know, now we're talking about thousands and thousands of changes at those intersections. In terms of our left-hand turn and our arrows and treatments like that, we have a couple hundred intersections where we've rethought the split signal or the phasing. Okay.
Follow up on that question.
Oh, yes.
Have you looked at the effectiveness of those treatments?
Yes.
Can you share any data as to what's changed?
So yes, well, we know that they're quite effective. Actually, we've seen a reduction. But Julia?
Yes. When we examined after our first round of installing the left turn traffic calming, we found that left turn speeds had decreased, I believe it was by about 29%. So we know that these are definitely working, especially when every difference in a mile per hour can mean the difference between life and death.
Thank you.
Is that in the Don't Cut Corners report?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So since Don't Cut Corners came out, this is when we've increasingly installed the 330. So you may have to reach out to us to get the exact specifics.
So, Chief, so will NYPD increase any enforcement regarding the left turn?
What happened is that since the Vision Zero, we've increased our enforcement dramatically. We've identified hazardous violations, speeding, fail to yield to the right of way, disobeying signs, speaking on the cell phone, texting, things of that nature. Last year, we issued over 700,000 speed summonses, moving violations for that particular violation. And we've asked our officers to target the right-of-way summons when people are failing to yield the right-of-way to our pedestrians and also our bicyclists. So again, we're looking to reach out and educate the public. We have engineering, and we will have enforcement. So hopefully we will have a change in an education of the public where we'll see a reduction in our fatalities with pedestrians.
Go ahead.
Do you know how many people have been killed by left turns this year so far, and has there been any uptick recently?
What happened is we've identified 21 pedestrians that were killed in left turns in 2018. From the last 3 years, since 2016, 17, and 18, we identified 70 cases of that. I don't have the number for offhand for 2019, but we can get that for you.
We'll get that to you.
Yes, and that's certainly our preference is that we write the summons when the person fails to yield to the pedestrian or the bicyclist who has the right of way, and therefore we don't have an injury. That's certainly our preference, because it's a form to reinforce it. It educates the individual who commits that violation is hopefully won't commit that violation again. I can get that number for you. I don't have that with us right now, so we'll get that for you.
Chief Chan, also, while the data certainly supports the effectiveness of Vision Zero and the education of drivers, how would you address those drivers who still complain about pedestrian behavior, namely those pedestrians who, jaywalk, they walk in between cars, and they jump out, and when they don't have the right of way. So is there a pedestrian component, a pedestrian education component to this?
Certainly. We've been working very closely with the Department of Transportation in terms of educating and outreach. We've had outreach teams throughout periodic. We've been on Northern Boulevard. We've been in Brooklyn on Bay Parkway, Ocean Parkway. We've been up in the Bronx in the Grand Concourse. We're going to continue the education. We have handouts that identify what our pedestrians can do to make themselves safer, and also what our motorists can do. We also have a sound truck for our transportation outreach unit that puts the message out, and because ultimately the safety of all of us it's a shared responsibility, and there's a responsibility on part of the pedestrian also to pay attention and don't assume that the driver always see you and is always paying attention.
So one for DOT and NYPD, but first you, where's this video going to be shown? Is there going to be video on TV?
That's going to be available on our social media website. That is a message that I will, when I speak to groups in public, and whether it's going to be visits to senior citizen centers by our community, our outreach units, that video will be shown. And again, we have our DOT partners who will also share that. But again, it will be going out on our social media platform immediately.
Okay, and does the DOT have any plans to increase the number of those left turn treatments? What is there anything stopping them from doing more?
No, I mean, we're putting them as the data comes up. We have the capacity to do approximately 100 a year. So that's how we're rolling that out. But we're continually trying new treatments, and we will also have a video about those treatments coming out in about a month, just so everyone can understand how they all work. And some of those lower cost treatments, like just the wedge, are easier to install. So I know we are looking to ramp that up. We do not, and unless we get those numbers through crash reports, our numbers come through crash reports. So you can ask our team, but for the most part, our crash reports involve motor vehicles.
We can actually take a look, but what happened is that there are certainly far fewer instances where the bicyclists are involved in crashes with people.
Okay, but do you have the number?
We'll see if we can get you to that number.
And then you said that you're writing the summonses. Do you have the breakdown of how many have been written in cars?
Any of those breakdowns, just call our office. We'll get them to you, all right?
We'll get those.
Also, Chief, speaking of cyclists, is there a cyclist education component and an infrastructure component to this plan?
Definitely. Again, through our Vision Zero task force and DOT, our closest partner on this, part of it is the handouts and education. DOT is handing out helmets. They've handed out flashing lights to add to the bicyclists to make them more visible and things of that nature. So again, it's a partnership, and we're going to continue with our education process.
Two more. That's it. All right, thank you, folks.
Hey, Badeo, can you ask about the issue with the signal lights and the live lines? Folks here are able to talk about it.
Okay. I believe that the department had issued some information in reference to it. Ultimately, with any type of traffic light, the New York City Police Department is prepared to respond if there's any problems or any issues in timing and things of that nature. Again, we will be working very closely with the Department of Transportation on that issue.
Yeah, and just from, no, I mean, really, it's we've mostly been referring people to Do It, to the Do It office, but my press office really has all of the communications about that.
Thank you, everybody. All right, thank you.
Thank you.